This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, despite 37 points from John Tonje in a furious rally from the Wisconsin Badgers, their comeback would fall short as they fell to BYU in the second round, 91-89. Here's more from head coach Greg Gard on the loss.
Credit to the young men I got in the locker room and three I was in my right. Been doing this for a long time, almost 35 years, and I told them watching them grow together. And we got together and now they have been the most fun, enjoyable year of my career.
Yesterday, you also saw Wisconsin women's hockey win the title match of the Frozen Four over Ohio State 4-3. Kirsten Sims was scoring a penalty shot to tie with 18 seconds left and then delivered the winner 2:49 into sudden death overtime. That's now 8 national championships for Mark Johnson, the winningest coach in Division I women's hockey history.
Mutual Insurance, Wisconsin strong.
As the #1 farm insurer in Wisconsin, Rural Mutual Insurance is rewarding their farm policyholders for their loyalty and commitment to Wisconsin agriculture through their farm dividend program. The farm dividend pays up to 5% back on your farm premium. Visit ruralmutual.com to learn how you qualify.
Rural Mutual Insurance, Wisconsin strong.
The Milwaukee Bucks are in the midst of a 5-game West Coast road trip. So far, they've gone 2-1. Tonight, for game number 4 of 5. They'll take on the Suns at 9 o'clock. And finally, the Milwaukee Brewers are finishing up spring training. That's before they go to New York on Thursday for Major League Baseball's opening day to take on the Yankees. Brewers ace Freddie Peralta will get the bump for the opening day start. For the Wisconsin Sports Zone Network, I'm Ebo.
That's in probably John Tonje's hands to try to win the game.
It's ISO.
Tonje stops, pops, fades. Great move from there. And BYU's got it on the outlet, and they're going to win it. The Cougars, the 6th seed, going to the Sweet 16.
We worked a long time to get to this position and have a chance, but in the big picture, couldn't be more proud of the group of how they committed to each other and to our program and continue to get better throughout the year.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
That's the final call from Saturday night, and then a comment from Greg Gard after the game. That final play, I know the Badgers were down, I think they trailed by 14. I think that was the biggest deficit. But they were down 10, 8, 11 points the entire second half, and still in that final minute when they were just close enough and Tonje was white hot. I don't know what their win probability was. It couldn't have been very high, but it's March. Right? It's the NCAA tournament, and crazy comebacks and crazy last-minute moments happen all the time, and I think that made that loss a little extra painful. When the Badgers were down 2 with the ball, John Tonje white hot, I talked myself into, well, this is what happens in March, right? And I started to rationalize and convince myself, we'll just work for a good 3, heave it up there, because it's March, and the basketball gods might just give it to you. And then he drove. I thought he maybe had a lane. I bet if John Tonje went back and watched the film, and this is all a moot point now, I would like to sit down and watch that play with John Tonje after the fact. But when I was cutting that audio for the intro and rewatching the play, it looked like he might have had a lane to just go all the way to the rim, and then he stops and he kind of got caught in no man's land. I bet if he could go back and do that again, he'd probably just go all the way. I don't know. I was kind of hoping for a 3, and I hate when basketball players in my generation feel the need to take a 3. It happens in tie games all the time. Tie game, 10 seconds left with the ball. Like, why does everyone want to take? Everyone always wants to take a 3. And it drives me nuts, especially when you only need a single point or you only need 2 points. The Badgers only needed 2 points, but this is actually one instance Saturday night where I was like, yeah, jack a 3. Because the basketball gods, the March Madness gods, they might just give it to you. It seemed more likely that they'd give a 3 to you than a 2, and Tonje drove and then hit the brakes, and then I think just didn't know quite what to do, and it wasn't meant to be for the Badgers, at least on that final play. This is the Wisco Sports Show. My name is Grant Bills. I'm happy to be back. Thank you for dealing with my absence last week. I'm glad that the Badgers at least won on Thursday. So, like, if the Badgers would have lost on Thursday and I wasn't on the air Thursday night or Friday to react to it with everybody, like, I would have felt bad. I know I get vacation days, and I had to go to a wedding, as I think I explained last Monday. So it wasn't even like I planned the trip that specific week to be gone for a couple of days. But I'm glad the Badgers at least waited until Saturday to lose, because this is the earliest we were going to be able to talk about it anyway. So happy to be here. I want to take lots of your calls tonight, talk Badgers and whatever else. Although I think tonight will be mostly a Badgers March Madness centric show. 608-321-1670 is the number, in the live stream on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter at Wisco Grant. That's up and running as well. So that's another reason or another way that you can get in touch with the show, and we can talk Badgers tonight. So as I give you my take on what happened on Saturday, and I was thinking about this all day yesterday, I've been thinking about it all day today, which is, I think, a blessing and a curse, right? When you have 2 full days to think about a loss. Sometimes I like when, like, the Brewers play in the afternoon and then the show immediately goes on the air and we just have to react. But I've had, pert near 2 days to stew on this. And as I've been working on my take and thinking about, what am I going to say on the show? I've been balancing 2 things. Like, the scale in a courtroom, the scale of justice, right? I think some of them are like, they got the blind lady with the 2 arms and you're, back and forth. It's a scale that must be balanced, right? And I'm balancing 2 things. I'm balancing 2 factors, both of them at the forefront of that loss. And I'm trying to figure out how much weight to assign to both of these things. So thing number 1, and this is something that I believe for a while, the NCAA tournament is such a cluster. It's such a car wreck. It's a massive car, and it's beautiful, and it's fun, and we love watching it, but it's a cluster, right? And every year that I'm alive, and every year that I watch it, and now I've been on the air since 2018, so what is this, 6 years or 7 years? Going to be 6 or 7 years I'm on the air, right? Every year that I've talked about it on the radio, minus 2020 because it was canceled, I only believe this more. Between the seating and the locations and the upsets and the region, all of it, it's a massive pig pile. And that's why we love it. But it's so random and it's such a mess, right? And we judge these programs and these coaches. They have Sweet 16 appearances, Elite 8 appearances, Final 4 appearances. And that all goes on the coach's resume. And I think it matters 100%. But I really, with every year that passes, every year that we do this, I more and more hate the idea that March is the only thing that matters. And many fans say that. Not all fans, but I think a lot of fans and some media people too, and you really heard it throughout this season, as the Badgers were succeeding and winning a lot of games, especially in the Big Ten portion of their schedule. That great win over Arizona, the regular season win at Purdue, right? They went out and beat USC. That was a fun win. And then even in the Big Ten tournament, right? That huge, I wouldn't call it an upset, but a massive win in a very exciting kind of signature win over Michigan State. Throughout it all, there are many college basketball fans, many Badger fans, and even media people too, who say, well, we'll see in March. The real test is in March. What really matters is March, the NCAA tournament. And I just think that's insane. Every year that I watch this thing, I'm like, why do we draw any conclusions from this thing? It's a mess, right? For example, just to use 2 other Big Ten examples, Purdue beats High Point and they beat McNeese. That was their draw. That was their first 2 opponents. Michigan beats UC San Diego and Texas A&M. And Purdue, Sweet 16, right? Michigan, there's a Sweet 16. Wisconsin draws BYU, who has 2 losses over the last couple months of their season, both to Houston. Excellent team. And it's in Denver at altitude. And I know last week when we last talked, I said, look, you got to beat good teams to make it to the Sweet 16. BYU's a good team. I don't think it was unfair that the Badgers had to play BYU. It's not an excuse. I'm just explaining. So Purdue beats High Point and McNeese. Michigan beats San Diego and Texas A&M. And all that. I watched the Michigan Texas A&M game, the whole thing. And all I was told in pregame about Texas A&M, man, their offense isn't very good and their defense might not be elite, but God, they can rebound. It's like, so Michigan beat the team that strength is rebounding. Forget everything else. They're in the Sweet 16. We're supposed to crown them. Purdue beats McNeese and High Point. I couldn't point out either on a map. Crown them, Sweet 16. Wisconsin loses a 2-point game to BYU in a de facto road game, and it's this catastrophe. It's this failure that's supposed to minimize the season that they had. It would be like your boss handing out a promotion based on a big office-wide game of musical chairs. Like, yeah, it's fun, it's entertaining. I would love to watch that, but is that how we're? So I'm not throwing out March Madness and saying it's completely worthless. I just every year that I watch it, I'm like, it's called March Madness. You know what I mean? The randomness is mixed in. So I refuse on a level higher than just about anybody else, I believe in media or Wisconsin sports fandom. I refuse to throw out or to minimize regular season results or conference tournament success because of a first weekend exit. I just think it's ridiculous. I think it's insane. I think it's insane that we take a 5-month body of work or a 4-month body of work or however long the season is, and we say, well, we'll see in March. It's like that thing. We're going to judge it on that thing. So I know I'm probably coming across like I'm making excuses for Wisconsin and I'm trying to carry their water. I'm not. This goes for lots of teams, and not just Wisconsin. The more that I watch March Madness every year, and the more times I experience it, it's like this is fun, and it's entertaining to fill out the brackets and the to find True TV and TBS and have it on at work or at school on Thursday and Friday. Like, it's fun. And there's certainly some value in it, and good coaches and good teams will go on runs more often than not. But it's just so random. And I think it's a huge factor in the way that we judge what happened on Saturday and the way that we view the 2024-2025 Wisconsin Badgers. So that's thing one. And that's in one hand. Thing two, in the other hand, is Wisconsin should have won that game. You know what I mean? Like, they should have won that game. That's a really, really good Wisconsin team with a superstar player, and a ton of senior experience. Carter Gilmore's been there forever. Kamari McGee's been there forever. Crowell has been there forever. Klesmit hasn't been there as long. He's been there a couple of years, but he's a senior. All these guys are seniors. They're adults, right? They're supposed to be calmer and cooler and more collected and more experienced. You're supposed to be able to win with a team like that on a higher, more consistent level than a team, say, the one like Illinois has this year. Lots of talent, but really young and just starting out. Like, Wisconsin should have won that game. That team is really good, and they're loaded with senior experience, and they have maybe the best player in just about every game they'll play in John Tonje, okay? They got their doors blown off over the first 30 minutes of that game. They couldn't get a stop. They missed layups. They missed free throws. They got 0 from their bench. Tonje really didn't get hot until late, and they lost by 2. After having the ball with a chance to tie or win it in a de facto road game against an awesome team who played even better than their season averages. They shot the ball better than their season averages. They defended at a higher level than their season averages. They made free throws. They were an awful free throw shooting team. That BYU team, I looked it up today. They shot about 70% on the year. They were about 276, 277th in the country in free throw percentage, based on whether or not you factored in Saturday's game or the tournament games. You just look at the regular season. You just look at BYU's regular season game. That's a 70% free throw shooting team, which puts them around 280th in the country, and they hit 15 of 16 of them. And Wisconsin was right there. Right? So I'm all about recognizing the randomness of March, the madness of March, and taking a lot of it with a grain of salt. But Wisconsin should have won that game. And I don't want to let them off the hook. Like, they came out shell-shocked, and they deserve criticism for that, especially because they're so experienced. They absolutely botched the final sequence going into halftime, which cannot happen. They deserve criticism for that, especially given that they're so experienced. They've been there, done that. They had no answers for BYU's pick and roll or their back cuts for most of the game. Greg Gard and his staff deserve criticism for that. So do the players. They couldn't control the boards, especially in the first half, and they missed way too many free throws. They deserve criticism for that. So I'm not letting Wisconsin off the hook, and I'm not saying like, oh, that's March Madness. It's random. No. It is March Madness, and it is random, but Wisconsin absolutely should have won that game, and they should still be playing. Now, would I have expected them to make a Final Four run or to win a national championship? Well, that's not what we're talking about today. It's Monday. They lost on Saturday, so we're talking about Saturday. But I'm trying to weigh the randomness of March against a performance that I think was below the Badgers' capabilities. Does that make sense? I'm trying to figure out how much slack I want to cut the Badgers, and I think they deserve some slack based on reaction from fans and reaction from media because everyone says, well, March is the only thing that matters. We're really going to find out. We're really going to learn about this team in March. I mean, a little bit of that is true. Yeah. But I, more than anyone, am not going to throw out 4 months of regular season body of work, of conference tournament body of work, because they got a weird draw. I mean, Jesus, I watch basketball, not all day Saturday, but I went in and out of games all day Saturday because we just got back from Mexico the night before. Like, I wasn't going out and about and doing anything. I was unpacking or making lunch. Like, I was in the apartment all day Saturday, and I had basketball on all day. And I watched the Michigan game start to finish. That's one game I watched start to finish, but I watched basketball all day Saturday. And you know what I kept thinking is, God, these teams can't play offense. The one time in my life I get spoiled watching the Badgers run offense. And I watched games. It was who was it? St. John's in Arkansas. And then I watched Michigan and Texas A&M. And I'm like, none of these teams can smoothly run offense. And I had some cuck in my Twitter mentions who was like, oh, Michigan can't run offense. They scored 90 points. Well, they took 40 free throws, for goodness sake. You know what I mean? Like, I'm watching these clunky clunkersons all day Saturday throw up bricks on runners and fading away jump shots. Like, these are not offensively gifted teams. The one team I watch all day Saturday who can run functional offense is naturally the team that Wisconsin draws. You know what I mean? So, yeah, there's some flukiness. And I think we need to bake that into our reaction. I also think Wisconsin should have won that game. And there's a lot of different factors and different variables in that game on Saturday night that Wisconsin deserves heat for. And Greg Gard deserves heat for. No, I don't think he should be fired. That's stupid. But they left some meat on the bone this year, which is really disappointing because it's a pretty good bone, pretty good meat. It's a senior-laden team with a superstar player. You don't get teams like that very often, especially in the current state of college basketball where guys are moving around and teams can fluctuate a lot year to year. Like, that's a rare team. That's a hard to find, hard to come by team. And I think Wisconsin left meat on the bone. And while March Madness is fluky and their draw certainly could have been easier, that team bowed out, I think, sooner than they should have. A round, 2 rounds, who knows, but sooner than they should have. To your phone calls next. I want to react to this game and kind of view the 2024-2025 Badgers in the big picture, kind of look back and try to evaluate this team and where they go from here. 608-321-1670. To your calls next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Obviously, the flurry and the heart and complete grit that we showed to make a comeback like that and have a chance in the last possession is a credit to the young men I've got in the locker room, and these three obviously to my right. I've been doing this a long time, almost 35 years, and as I told them, watching them grow together from the time we got together in June to now may have been the most fun, enjoyable year in my career.
That's Greg Gard again Saturday night. I had a blast watching this Badgers team this year. It's one of my favorite teams in a while. And there's been plenty of teams over the years in my lifetime with the Badgers. But they get to the tournament, they lose in the first weekend. You say, they weren't really that good. Solid team, good to make the tournament, but they weren't really that good. I don't feel that way about this team. I think the tournament is a crapshoot, and I thought the Badgers got a tough matchup. That BYU team could score, and it's funny because I watched basketball all day Saturday, and none of those teams could score. It's like, so A&M, so they're good at rebounding? That's their thing? Okay. Arkansas, St. John's. St. John's, I mean, they would be, I think PFT commenter tweeted, they'd be the best team in college basketball if you just, like, took the hoop away, if scoring wasn't required. And then, of course, Wisconsin draws the one team who can absolutely fill it up, and it's in a de facto road game. So the draw was tough, but they still should have won that game. And I left thinking Saturday night, one of the best Badger teams in a while, left some meat on the bone in the tournament. And they don't get let off the hook for that. 608-321-1670. We'll start with Dave from Monona. Dave, what's up?
You were missed on Friday, but of course, you got to see your alter ego that Nikki sent up to the party. So
yeah, I saw you had a video with a blow-up doll.
That came from Nikki, you know.
Yeah. That's what Ebo said. I kind of got the backstory this morning. Sorry, I couldn't be there. I would have loved to get up to Appleton. Maybe next year.
You were free. Your bride and groom was freeloading off you people at a destination wedding. I understand how that goes, you know.
That's fair.
You got to get her free. But anyway, no, I've been a Guard fan all my life until this is it. It's been 8 years. Enough's enough. It's time for a change. He had all this talent this year. He's going to lose probably 7, maybe 8 players this year. And I'm telling you, it's the same mistakes over and over. Different years, same results. Pick and roll, can't stop. Right before the half, a 35-year-old senior.
Yeah, Stephen Crowell. That's the worst play of the game. That was the worst play of the game.
And also, you know, at the end of every half this year, where they run a 1-4 flat, it doesn't work. And in the Saturday night, nobody screened. You got the best shooter in the country. He doesn't pull up for a three, so there's a rebound chance. He drives, stops, no screens, falls back, game over. But it's the same crap. No points in the paint. And God, if he has to come back, my Christmas wish, no more tall white guys from Minnesota. No more Stephen Crowells. No more Kaminsky's. Sending him back to Minnesota.
Kaminsky.
No more Winters because he played 20 minutes.
Kaminsky.
If anybody should have been on that floor, it should have been
Gilmore. He was on the floor.
Gilmore.
They took Klesmit off. They put Gilmore on, which is notable.
Yeah, the wrong guy. It should have been Gilmore on, and you know the peanut butter and jelly sat the whole game. But here's the point: it's the same mistakes all year long, same result. Yeah, it was a good year, but who cares? It's been 8 years. That team should have been in the Elite Eight with that many potential All-Star guards. Come on, guards.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. They should have gone farther. Dave, we just got loaded phone lines, so I got to move along. The sequence into halftime was horrible, and it's a sequence that a senior-laden team should not have. Right? You got to know to hold for the final shot. You're down 8. It's a miracle that you're down 8, and a big part of the reason why they were able to at least keep it close enough in the first half is because Stephen Crowell actually hit some shots at the jump. Stephen Crowell left a lot to be desired from a rebounding perspective. They couldn't control the boards, which I thought was the thing they did best against Michigan last weekend. Like, that's the one thing they did well against Michigan. They had an awesome game plan between Crowell and Winter to control the boards, and Gilmore too. And then that went out the window against BYU on Saturday. And in the second half, when they started corralling rebounds and they started finishing at the rim and they started making free throws, oh my God, it's a game. They futzed around a little bit too long. And that sequence into halftime. Yeah, it's a boneheaded play because you take the final shot and at worst you go in down 8, which would have been a miracle considering how bad it felt early. It felt like a rerun of James Madison. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant, hey, Tony from Texas. I know the Badgers lost, and Marquette for that matter. I had a hell of a weekend myself, though.
Oh, good.
Took out Raymond Felton's Nike EYBL team. Now, anyone that follows this AAU stuff knows that the EYBL is the best of the best. They bring in these dudes that are 7 foot from across the country, Grant, and we knocked them out. It was badass, man. Greatest win ever for me as a coach.
How do you do? Well, congrats. How do you do that? How do you deal with the size? Because we've seen the Badgers.
Okay,
I mean, they have 2 7-footers.
That's what I'm getting to.
Okay, good.
Absolutely. I'm getting to that right now. You got to go 5 out. You got to have these guys. I got this guy. I know Dave was on. Thank God Dave's still alive. The guy's a national treasure.
He is.
I got a guy, they call him Cooper Flaglight, 6'7", 6'8", can just come outside, knock down threes. And then the big guys that are 7 foot, kind of like Frank the Tank back in 2014, he'll just take them inside. And that's what we did to Felton's EYBL team. And the Badgers, maybe they weren't as versatile as they could be, a little bit of a one-trick pony at times. But you mentioned this about basketball in general right now in the college game.
Mm-hmm.
There's just not enough skill. All these coaches are doing is getting these guys or these athletes 6'7", 6'6", 6'8", 6'9", that are just big dudes that can defend, because that's easier to do than to actually practice skill hours and hours and hours. And the Badgers had the skill. I just don't know if they had the grit,
Okay. No, I think there's some good points in there. The thing that's bothering me, Tony, that's a good call. Congrats on the big win. Thing that's bothering me is they were masterful against Michigan, who's much bigger and skilled on the interior than BYU is. They were masterful against Michigan. And I said this last Monday. I said this. I talked about this because we can take calls last Monday. I talked for 2 straight hours. I said Crowell, Winter, and Gilmore were unbelievable at controlling rebounds, limiting possessions. And Crowell mentioned it after the game. They couldn't grab a loose ball in the first half. BYU ended up with 13 offensive rebounds, and I don't know how many second chance points. I don't know if that's a thing on the ESPN website. Second chance points. They got fast break points. Maybe I can find it over the break. But I think Crowell mentioned they had a bunch of them, especially in the first half. And that really, really, it's enough. It's hard enough to get 1 stop against a good offense, but then you got to get 2 or 3 because you can't rebound. Well, no wonder you're trailing and you're playing from behind. And then you can't hit free throws. Nothing kills a comeback like missed free throws. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant.
Hey, Coney.
Just a tough weekend. I was really, really sad after this loss.
It was too.
You watch all season, definitely left meat on the bone. Could have at least made it to the Sweet 16. But with that being said, whatever, it's March. I think, Tanji getting the ball in his hands, that was the right call. I know you were falling to the don't know ball category of saying, oh, it would have been nice to drop a play.
I did overreact on the internet. In hindsight, it's like, give your guy the ball. He's been carrying you the last couple minutes. I'm fine with the way the final play went.
Yeah, I wish people could see that. I saw the tweet was deleted this morning, so that's just what I noticed.
Yes,
Dave, it's tough to hear that he's out on the guard train. I'm still Greg guard for life, although I did have a big issue with his post game comments. He said, we were picked 12th to finish in the Big Ten this year. Back in November, a lot of people doubted us. Well, Greg, you were a 3 seed. You had an advantageous matchup, I thought, the first 2 rounds. It doesn't matter. It's March now.
Yeah.
Those expectations, what Big Ten media said in November, who the heck cares? Last thing, sounds like Winter's coming back, Blackwell's coming back, and this team go out to the portal and get an athletic big man.
Yeah. Yep.
And last thing.
You're good.
We all saw how nice it was watching this team without Tyler Wall this year. Cannot wait for that same excitement next year without Stephen Crowell.
Yeah, so Steven Crowell's the thing. That's a great call, Cone. And by the way, on your comment about preseason expectations and you were picked, I also did not like that from Greg Gard. In fact, it's on my rundown here on my computer screen. We're going to get to that at 5:00. So I'll play you that audio, and I had a strong reaction to that as well. So put a pin in that. We'll get to that. I want to do that separately. Your take about next year's team with Winter and Blackwell and some of these guys coming back. I'm also excited about Janicki. I'm excited about Xavier Amos, who I thought over the last 2 weeks, like finally figured it out. I thought he was kind of a man without a country this season. It's like, okay, so, and also here's Xavier Amos for a couple minutes every night. And he'd go out there and maybe he'd hit a 3 or make a play. But I thought the last 2 weeks, it finally seemed like he settled in and he's like, okay, so this is my role. This is how it's supposed to work in the Big Ten. Like I kind of got some excitement for him moving forward too. I'm already excited about next year's team, but that's sports fandom, right? So I'm already excited about next year. Steven Crowell was a great Badger and he was really, really good. There were a couple of moments every game where it's like, and that's why you're Steven Crowell and not Frank Kaminsky or even Ethan Happ, who's probably a degree better. They're very different players, Crowell and Happ, right? Dave talked about, or Tony talked about playing 5 out and going wide. Well, Steven Crowell hit 2 threes early in that game, and he's a brilliant passer. And Steven Crowell, we've seen his ability. Again, that Michigan game, that's going to stick with me forever because I saw it. I saw that he could do it. And Winter and Gilmore, too, that collective of bigs against Michigan, against those Twin Towers who've given everybody fits all year. They controlled the boards. They controlled the paint. They were masterful. And the outside players didn't hold up their end of the bargain. Nobody hit shots and could score enough to beat Michigan last Sunday like they very clearly should. The expected point totals, but like Wisconsin, if you looked at the expected point totals or the shot value chart, they should have won by like 15. Like the bigs were outstanding in that game. And I thought they regressed a little bit against BYU. Nolan Winter looked really uncomfortable. I mean, shoot. Carter Gilmore, who I'm going to miss, like I thought he played some of his best basketball over the final 2 or 3 weeks of the season. Max Klesmik gets benched in favor of Carter Gilmore last night. He's the one controlling that ball to set up the final possession, jumping on it, calling timeout. Like, I won't go so far as to say I'm excited to see the team without Steven Crowell, but there's a reason that he was Steven Crowell and not Ethan Happ or even higher. He's better than Nate Reavers. In the hierarchy, it's Kaminsky, probably Happ. Slightly below Happ is not Nolan Winter, but Crowell, and then like 3 steps down is Reavers. So much better than Reavers, not quite Happ, certainly not Kaminsky. And there are a couple of plays every game where it's like, and that's where Steven Crowell. And one of those was the play before halftime, where a senior has to know in that situation, we're going to hold, unless it's wide open, which it wasn't. And it wasn't a bad shot. It was a turnaround floater. I've seen Crowell hit that 100 times. But it wasn't a dunk and it wasn't a layup. And it kind of had to be a dunk or a layup if you were going to give BYU any time. And of course, wouldn't you know it, they go hit a 3, and instead of being down 8 at best or at worst, you're down 11 and you really lose some juice going into halftime. One more call and then we'll take a break. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant, Matt from Cross Plains.
Hey, Matt in Cross Plains. How you doing?
Hey, you know I never usually call out other callers to your show, but I'm calling out David Monona right here for being a little hypocritical.
Okay.
You know, falling off the Greg Gard wagon. I've been carrying the Greg Gard cross all day to the haters. You know, these people who just, you know, they just can't understand what it's all about to have a successful season, like you were saying in your open, you know, and then to base it all off of March. You know, it took Bo Ryan like 13 years to get to his first Final Four. And now Greg Gard is going into his 11th year. So I think he's still got 2 years to do it, right? And then he'll be right on par with, old Bo Ryan, right? And
yeah.
And then again, all those people who are hypocrites like Dave and Monona. For the longest time, they wanted a guy who can create his own shot and slash to the hoop and get fouled. And here yet they're going to call out this last play as Gard's fault for giving it to Tanjay. And, trying to make a play after he basically carries the team on his back for the last 4 minutes of the game. So, there you go. So that's how I feel about that. You know, I was out in Arizona. I got to drive on the 101 and 202. It was beautiful. Got up to Sedona, did a little hiking, watched the Cubs game. They lost, but, that's not a big deal.
What do you think about Council pulling Imanaga through 4 no-hit innings?
That was horrible. I think it was horrible. You're there to win.
I mean, it's March. You know? It's early. Like I understand protecting the player. It's just kind of funny as someone like that's borderline erotic for someone like myself. Like Council making the decision to pull a guy who's rolling, and then the guy he brings in immediately gives it up. I understand why he's protecting and not wanting to overwork Imanaga, but you understand from my perspective, that's as good as it gets.
yeah, that's from your perspective, that's amazing. And I was a little upset about it. I understand like usual, but at the same time, these are professional pitchers. This is what they do for a living. Sometimes you just got to trust them, and I don't think he trusts them enough, unfortunately. So
That's fine. No, I understand that. I was hoping you'd mention that. We're going to have, by the way, tomorrow night, Sam Ulber, who does Locked On Cubs, really, really good baseball talker. So we're going to preview the NL Central, at least the Brewers and the Cubs, which are mostly the two teams that I care about. So he's going to be on tomorrow night. And I was listening to his podcast a little bit because I was at the airport on Thursday morning or Wednesday morning. When did I get Tuesday? When were the, no, it was Tuesday, right? The Cubs played in the Tokyo Dome first thing Tuesday. And then I listened to a little bit of Locked On Cubs because I wanted their reaction, which is mostly measured and fine. I need the content. I'm addicted to the content. So he'll be on tomorrow night. Dave's mention of it's time for a change with Greg Gard. It seems mighty familiar to what was said about the football program. And I'll give you some thoughts on that after this next break. But one more caller. There's one more on hold. Why? Let's just get to it. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this? Great. That was worthwhile. Make me look like an ass. All right, 5 minutes. We'll be right back. And I will give you extended thoughts on what Dave from Monona had to say, which was Fire Guard. It's time for a change.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
You know, you get lucky and unlucky. I mean, I just went through a 3-year period where everybody wants to ship me out. I mean, it's just the way it is. You know, they don't have the resources here. I'm going to say what I think. This ain't what Fran thinks. I mean, everybody has different amounts of resources. They're not on the middle or high end. And people, I mean, I love Fran. You know, I think what he's gone through here with his own kids and everything. Watch what you wish for. I've seen this happen in a couple of football programs close to us, and people better appreciate. You know, it's easy to throw stones. Everybody says, well, we're paying guys money now, so you should be able to win. Well, don't you think the rest of us are paying money? No different.
That's Tom Izzo 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, and I played that audio on the show at the time. I think it's just a really interesting soundbite. He was asked about, I almost said Kirk Ferentz, asked about Fran McCaffrey at Iowa. There were some mumblings or murmurs or questions about whether or not he'd be back. Turns out he was not back, but this was before that happened, and Izzo said, basically, be careful what you wish for, and then went so far as to say, I've noticed this with a couple of football programs close to us. We can assume he's talking about Wisconsin, possibly Nebraska as well. When you think, oh, well, it's time to do something different. And then you realize, oh, we didn't actually have it so bad. And the reason that I play this clip is because I want to talk for a couple of minutes about what Dave Fermanota said back at 420. If you missed it, he basically said, and Dave's a funny caller because his methods, his delivery, a bit brash. And on their face, you might think, oh, Dave is a crazy old man. And I think on some level he is. But he's very often right. Again, delivery, and not great, and touch, minimal. But often his takes are pretty correct. So to hear Dave say something like, yeah, it's time. It's time. We just have to do something different. I think you get yourself in a world of trouble with that line of logic and that line of thinking. And by the way, I think the idea of firing Greg Gard is insane. So I probably wouldn't even be talking about this. I wouldn't be addressing that. Look, put it this way. I did not write on my rundown tonight why I don't think we should fire Greg Gard, because I think the idea is so insane. But Dave brought it up, and then I remembered that comment from Izzo a couple weeks ago. It's basically like, be careful what you wish for. And I'm like, okay, that's pertinent. That's germane. Let's replay that. Let's circle back to that. And I'll mention something that I mentioned to Bill earlier today when we compared basketball and football. We did it in the 4th hour of the show. So if you want to go back, like, ooh, Bill talked about that, that's interesting. I want to listen to that. It's hour number 4 in the podcast. You can go find it. And he basically said, okay, so now our attention shifts to football, right? How does football benefit, or how does this affect football, if at all? Very much a sports radio topic, right? Looking to connect things that may or may not actually be connectable. And what I said is like, look, if we can get out of the football team what we're currently getting out of the basketball team, like, I'll take it. Because a lot of Badger basketball fans, right? Maybe not a lot, but the most negative of Badger basketball fans will say, well, what did that regular season even mean? What did the Big Ten tournament even mean? Because you couldn't even make it out of the first weekend of March Madness. You couldn't even make the Sweet 16. And this team was better than a second round exit. Totally. This team should have been out of the first weekend, 100%. But as a sports fan and a sports talk radio host that likes good games and and entertaining games and good stories and good performances that I can watch and get excited about and talk on the radio, this Badgers basketball team was the balls. You know what I mean? Like, we had the Carter Gilmore game against Northwestern. We had the Jack Janicki game against Minnesota. Signature wins that I'll remember for a long time at Mackey Arena, right? The Big Ten tournament against Michigan State. Like, those were the Arizona game where John Tonje just said, hey, guys, I'm amazing. And we're like, oh, this John Tonje guy, he's pretty good. Like, lots of signature wins, fun moments. Did it amount to a deep postseason run? No, not as deep as it probably should have. And if the draw was different, who knows? If BYU doesn't shoot completely and totally out of their rear end from the free throw line relative to their season averages, we might be having a different conversation, right? But if from the football team this fall, we can get a barn burner of a game against Iowa and an entertaining game against Minnesota where the Badgers prevail, like, I will take it. Now, expectations have lowered significantly for football, but still, like, I think there is great value in entertaining, fun, good storylines. We got all of that from this Badgers basketball team. Yeah, they probably should have won a game or two more in the tournament. Okay. But I'm not going to act like we should throw the baby out with the bathwater, especially for the sake of, hey, got to do something different. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant, happy Victory Monday. How about the women's hockey team?
Is it bad that
national champion Mark Johnson is the best hockey coach in North America?
I probably should have mentioned it. It was cool. Really good finish. The final couple of shots and the comments from Mark Johnson after the game were great. I'm not a Badgers hockey expert, so I feel a little bit dirty. I feel a little bit bad about getting on the show to be like, how about those ladies, when I haven't really talked about them at all. I thought of Denny and Holman first. That's actually who I thought of.
I am not going to stand here and pretend like I have paid the utmost attention to the women's hockey team all season, but we celebrate wins and championships when they come around, and we do not apologize for them. This is a huge achievement for the school. It's a huge achievement for the program. Obviously, a lot of us were very unhappy with the result of the basketball team this weekend, and I really think that the hockey team sort of eased the pain a little bit because, I mean, come on, 8-time champions? That's awesome.
It's pretty
We're
cool.
Returning to our roots as a hockey school.
Isn't it funny how we went from a football school to a volleyball school to maybe we're a basketball school? Oh, no, wait, now we're a hockey school. Like, it is kind of funny how we do this.
Well, if you'd asked my father, rest his soul, we were originally a hockey school before we were ever a basketball or a football school.
That's good.
And I don't know if there's a lot of people around who remembers that era. But yeah, those were kind of that was the teams that put Wisconsin on the map before obviously the other programs sort of got flushed out. I would like to respond to the comments made by the anthropomorphic hemorrhoid known as Dave from Monona. I do not think that we need to fire Greg Gard.
Of course not.
As someone who has never said a single negative thing about the man, I firmly stand behind his position as head coach of the basketball team. I think he was doing the right thing by giving the ball to John Tonje and letting him make a play at the end of the game. I mean, he had the most points on the team, and I may have had the most points in the whole game at that point. You have to give your ball to your best playmaker and let him go make something happen. Would it have, could it have looked a little bit better? Yes, of course. Was it the result that we wanted? No, absolutely not. But BYU is a really good team who I think could still make a further, deeper run in this tournament. And the Badgers really dug deep and fought back in a situation where they very well could have just laid down, rolled over, and died.
That's true. I don't. And Badger Bloody, I just got to get one more. Thank you. That's a great call. I'm not like, well, they made a comeback and that, okay, but they were the ones who put themselves down in a hole. So I'm glad they made it interesting at the end. I guess I don't give them a ton of credit for coming. I mean, they deserve credit for it, but also like they dug themselves into the hole. So I'm not really sure how I feel about that. One more call quick and then we got to go to break. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Yeah, moral victories are not victories. Hi, it's Darnell.
Hey, Darnell. It just doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah, unfortunately, any way you cut it up, Saturday was a loss, and it was a very disappointing and ugly loss. It hurts even more because you're losing 4 to 5 guys that you really got to, whether you really got to know them over the last couple of months or the last couple of years in a couple of the guys' cases. It always sucks. Like that's the one thing about college sports that I think kind of keeps you coming back is that each year things are a little bit different, right? They're like sometimes you have like Rodgers on the Packers, 12 years, right? He's there every single year. You know he's going to be there.
Yep.
For the most part. With college sports, you got 3 years of Frank the Tank, really 2 really good years of Frank the Tank, and then he's gone, right? Sam Decker there for 3 years, and then he's gone. John Tonje, 1 year, and he's gone. So really kind of like appreciating that this year was really fun. I went to some games this year, and there was more energy in the Kohl Center than had been there since probably pre-COVID. Right?
My favorite season in a long time. And I think a lot of people would say that. Greg Gard said it after the game.
Yeah. I really don't like him doing the whole preseason expectations thing. It's been played out a little bit at this point. Like, yes, we know they were picked to finish 12th. We heard it all Big Ten tournament. We don't need to hear it again. And just because you were picked to finish 12th does not mean anything when you get a 3 seed. You get a 3 seed in the actual tournament. That shows that you are a good team and you need to perform like a 3 seed. Now they got a really, really crappy draw as a 3 seed, but you just gotta make it happen. They didn't make it happen, and that's what happens. That's why March Madness is so awesome, because any of these teams can do that. Like no one had BYU in the Final Four. I'm sorry, no one. People just didn't have that as a pick. So anybody can make these things happen, and the Badgers just haven't been able to make it happen going back about a decade. So, you just kind of gear up for next year. Greg Gard is not the reason they lost.
No.
People don't know ball, and that's just how it is. So, the dumb people can have their dumb takes, but Badger basketball will be back. Greg Gard has adapted fantastically, and he knows how to use the portal. So I'm really excited for 2026.
I am too, and maybe that makes me a sucker. I'm like, well, now, like, what does it look like with Freitag and Blackwell and Winter and Janicki and like Amos? Kind of like the sound of it. I'm kind of excited about that. Ricardo Greppi, he'll be back, motivated. You can bet. Let's take a break. 3 minutes. Last segment of the hour. I want to share an NFL headline with you today, and then at 5 o'clock, I want to address that expectations thing. Well, we were picked to finish. Well, pick the inside of my. I don't care. That frustrated me, and I'm glad that some of you glommed onto that too. So that's coming up at 5 o'clock. First, to wrap up hour number 1, an NFL headline that made me laugh today.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show, Monday mailbag in 1 hour. So submit your questions about life, romance, sports, cuisine, pop culture, whatever. That's the one segment where we'll talk about something outside of sports. Send me your emails. grantbills21@gmail.com. That's coming up in an hour, the final segment of the show. Coming up after 5 o'clock, I got to rant a little bit about this prevailing, I don't want to call it a notion or a thought process or whatever. I'm sick of hearing, well, they were picked to finish whatever in the Big Ten. It's just crawled up my butt. It's bothering me. So we'll address that on the other side after the update that we get from Zach. One thing, an NFL story that I saw today that made me laugh. We don't need to dwell on it, but I definitely wanted to bring it up and share it. Albert Breer does his column, the Monday Morning Quarterback, every Monday. But his takeaways today, he has 4 or 5 bullet points in the tweet. And I read the whole story, but he wrote about Stephon Diggs' perception, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins contract details, how a team can use Travis Hunter, your move, Kirk Cousins. These sound like Jeopardy categories. And the most interesting one, Rodgers wants a Green Bay culture. Interesting. Now, if you're watching on the live stream, I'll throw the screenshot. Dan Casper, WAYY, our affiliate up in Eau Claire, actually shared this, which was why I saw it first. This is what he writes about in Green Bay. He basically says, or this is what he writes about with Aaron Rodgers. He basically says, I know that Rodgers has made a lot of money, but I don't think the search for his next team has much to do with money. He wants to be a part of a winning organization. He wants to win, right? And this is what Albert Breer wrote. I read this directly from the Monday Morning Quarterback. This is from this morning. Along those lines, I've heard Rodgers is looking for a culture such as the one in Green Bay. I get if that sounds a little strange after the drama of the 4-time MVP's final year as a Packer. But over the last few months, Rodgers has been open with people around him on his renewed appreciation for what he had for 18 seasons in Wisconsin. Call it a grass is greener dynamic if you want, but it definitely is felt to some of those around him. Like spending a couple of years as a New York Jet made Rodgers view the situation he had there more favorably. So many petty Packers fans, or many people who hate Aaron Rodgers, I am neither. First of all, I'm not a fan. I'm an owner. I don't hate Aaron Rodgers. I roll my eyes at some of the things that he does, and I'm skeptical of how good he can still be and how far he can lead a team, but I don't hate the guy. A lesser fan or owner, or a more petty fan or owner than myself would say, Rodgers, see, you idiot, you had it all along. How is he supposed to know? How, Packers fans, how are any of us supposed to know? And, forget organizational structure, forget, their draft measurables or whatever. Talking in the biggest of big pictures. Green Bay doesn't have an owner. The Jets do have an owner. He is well known now, especially after the Rodgers era, to be a boob. Packers fans, what we don't understand, or maybe we understand it, but we don't often have to deal with this. There are some teams in the NFL, there's a good amount of teams in the NFL, who have owners that are cheap, who are lazy, who are stupid, who are vindictive or mean, or just bad people, or some combination of all. And if that's the case, you're just boned. Person owns the team. There's nothing you can do. And in Green Bay, it's never an issue. It's never something we had to deal with, or Rodgers had to deal with. And now that he dealt with Woody Johnson, he's like, I don't want to do that again. Hour number 2, Wisco Sports Show next.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, despite 37 points from John Tonje and a furious rally from the Wisconsin Badgers, their comeback would fall short as they fell to BYU in the second round, 91-89. Here's more from head coach Greg Gard on the loss.
Today stings a lot because we worked a long time to get to this position and have a chance. But in the big picture, like I said, I couldn't be more proud of the group of how they committed to each other and to our program and continue to get better throughout the year.
Yesterday, you also saw Wisconsin women's hockey win the title match of the Frozen Four over Ohio State 4-3. Kirsten Sims would score on a penalty shot to tie with 18 seconds left and then delivered the winner 2:49 into sudden death overtime.
Unbelievable all year, top to bottom. This team has had so much depth. There's so much talent everywhere. And to just be able to come out on top and prove it time and time again, and then to really prove it in a game like this, and this the huge adverse game that we had to go through, and to be able to still come out on top just shows how incredible of a group this is, and I couldn't be happy enough for us.
That's now 8 national championships for Mark Johnson, the winningest coach in Division I women's hockey history.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
As the #1 farm insurer in Wisconsin, Rural Mutual Insurance is rewarding their farm policyholders for their loyalty and commitment to Wisconsin agriculture through their farm dividend program. The farm dividend pays up to 5% back on your farm premium. Visit ruralmutual.com to learn how you could qualify.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
The Bucks continue on their West Coast road trip as they're in Phoenix tonight to take on the Suns. That tip-off will be at 9 o'clock. And finally, we're almost to opening day for Major League Baseball when the Brewers are out in New York to face the Yankees on Thursday. For the Wisconsin Sports Zone Network, I'm Ebo.
That's in probably John Tajay's hands to try to win the game. It's ISO. Tajay stops, pops, fades. Breaks over from there. And BYU's got it on the outlet, and they're going to win it. The Cougars, the 6th seed, going to the Sweet 16.
We worked a long time to get to this position and have a chance, but in the big picture, couldn't be more proud of the group of how they committed to each other and to our program and continue to get better throughout the year.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Hour number 2. I love it when a plan comes together. I love when I write something down on my rundown and then a caller brings it up. It's like, it's something I want to talk about. It's like, I was also planning to talk about that thing. I love when a plan comes together. I want to continue to take more of your phone calls. 608-321-1670. We'll get back to the phones here in about 10 minutes. Wide open phone lines. If you want to grab them, you can populate those lines and be ready to go when we get back to calls. Just a couple minutes. In about 45 minutes, we'll get to the Monday mailbag so you can submit your questions about whatever. There's been a lot of talk about TV the last couple of weeks. The Severance season 2 finale and the few episodes leading up to it. A lot of people unhappy. I was fighting online with Peter Bukowski about this earlier today. Not because I love Peter. I don't know why, but fighting online, it's just so fun. He just can't help himself but go back and forth. And that's why I love him. It's like a Batman Joker thing. You know what I mean? Like I never want to win an argument with Peter. That would mean that we have to stop arguing. So I love doing that. So if you want to talk about, I know Eric sometimes gives us his take on Survivor. If you have a take on whatever, send your questions, submit your questions. It's the Monday mailbag, grantbills21@gmail.com. I will get to them in the final segment of the show today. So again, something that Cone brought up, and then Darnell brought it up again. And now I'm realizing that I don't have the cut in front of me ready to go, but now I do because I'm very organized. This is Greg Gard after the game on Saturday, and I didn't love this comment. I've heard this comment throughout the season, and as the season has progressed, I like this line of thinking less and less. I like this comment less and less. So this is Greg Gard talking about how it was a special year, and there's a specific reference he makes in this comment that I really don't like.
We were highly doubted early. We weren't even supposed to be in this tournament. Supposed to be finishing 12th in the Big Ten, maybe. And this group just bought in and committed to each other. And we're so much fun to be around every single day and so much fun to coach. And the joy that they played with and how they bonded together is really, really special.
So I wholeheartedly agree with some of that. Like, I do think this was a very fun, very special team on which all of the guys were very connected. And I'm told by reporters and coaches, take it for what it's worth, I guess, but I think I tend to believe it. It was borne out in the results that this team put a ton of work in very invested, very connected, all of those things. Special team, very fun to watch. It's probably my favorite Badger team since the Final Four teams. I think a lot of people kind of share in that sentiment. Greg Gard basically said that as well. Now, he wasn't coaching the Final Four teams, but going so far as to basically say, like, this has been one of my favorite teams to coach, or this has, been my favorite team to coach. I don't remember the exact verbiage. It's the beginning of that comment that just doesn't really do it for me. One more time.
We were highly doubted early. We weren't even supposed to be in this tournament. Supposed to be finishing 12th in the Big Ten, maybe. And this group just bought in.
So the group bought in, and they were connected, and they worked hard. They did all the things. They were a blast to watch. It is late March. It's almost April, in fact. I don't care about preseason predictions at all. I don't really care about them when they come out. I thought Rutgers was going to be the balls because they got, Ace Bailey and what was the other one? Dylan Harper. Like, look at these two guards. Oh, amazing. They were mostly a mess. They were a roller coaster this year. I don't even remember who was picked to win the Big Ten. I certainly don't think it was Michigan, right? Like, Wisconsin picked, 12 to finish. I saw that and I said, well, I'll wipe my butt with that because there's no way that's going to happen. Now, I didn't expect Wisconsin to be this good, but I didn't expect them to be bottom half of the Big Ten and miss the NCAA tournament. God, no. The program's too good. Greg Gard, as much as some of you drag him and complain about him, Greg Gard is too good. Crowell has been here forever. Klesmit has been here. And I'm not saying that Crowell or Klesmit, they're superstars, but we're acting like we didn't know any of these guys, that they were all brand new transfers or freshmen, like they all suck. I don't care about preseason predictions. I certainly don't care about them now, but it should have taken us all of about a month of the regular season to say, okay, the pundits, the experts, picked this team to finish in the bottom half of the Big Ten. We have now watched them a month. This John Tonje cat, who we knew nothing about, is really, really good. Look at the rest of the team. John Blackwell is really, really good. Crowell, senior. Klesmit, senior. Nolan Winter, talented sophomore poised to make a leap. Right? Carter Gilmore, senior. This was an easy team to get a read on about a month into the season. Now, I didn't think they would finish as highly as they did, and I would argue they left some meat on the bone in the regular season too. Like, they porked it against Oregon, and they blew it against Penn State. So those are two regular season games that they just absolutely should have won. But going back to December or early January, it doesn't take Ken Pomeroy to look at this roster and say, you know what? I know what the preseason projections said, but this team's pretty good. Kamari McGee off the bench. He's a senior, been playing a lot of college basketball. Carter Gilmore's been around. No one should be sitting here today thinking, how did they do it? But the experts said that this team wouldn't even make the NCAA tournament. It should have taken a month of watching them to know that they were better than the prognosticators said. So to say now on March 24th that, well, no one picked us to be here. Okay, well, maybe in November, but you know what? In November, we didn't know who was going to be the next president in November. We didn't know so many things in November or October when these things came out. We knew nothing about so much. We've got so much information. And again, it didn't take 3 months of the regular season. You could have watched this team until Christmas and known that they were going to be better than the experts thought.
We were highly doubted early. We weren't even supposed to be in this tournament.
Early. And then we watched you guys for a little bit and we realized, oh, they're packed to the gills with seniors. Tonje is a star. Blackwell might be a star in the making. Nolan Winter's taking a leap. Kamari McGee is experienced. Duh. So I don't care about the preseason predictions. I'm a little tired of hearing about them. I'm a little sick of them getting referenced because I don't think they're pertinent. And I don't like when a team loses in the playoffs, whether it be the Packers or the Brewers, or in this case, the Badgers. I don't like when a team loses and then pundits or fans or whoever says, well, no one thought they'd make it this far. Okay, yeah, when we knew very little about the team or when they weren't playing well, but then they started to play better, or then we started to figure out how good they were, and then expectations should have changed and the goalposts should have moved because we should form different opinions and form different expectations when presented with new information and new experiences. And again, it shouldn't have taken 4 or 5 months. By Christmas, you knew that this team was pretty darn good. Now, maybe not top 3 in the Big Ten, with Elite 8 or Final Four hopes, but come on. It took a month to tell you that all those predictions in the preseason meant nothing because no one knew. 608-321-1670. Let's get back to the phone calls. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Welcome back, Grant.
Thank you, Eric. How are you?
Welcome back. I'm good. How was your time in Mexico, was it?
Man, better than a sharp stick in the eye. A beach, pool, all-inclusive, so I don't have to pay for drink. I mean, I paid for the drinks, but you know what I mean. Like, pretty great. Went on a catamaran cruise. Never been on a catamaran before. I saw flying fish. I think I was the only one on the boat who was really excited about that, but that's fine. I can just be my thing.
Nice. Well, I'm glad you had a good time, and everybody got married down there then. The people who at least were supposed to get married got married.
No one stopped the wedding. No one objected. Although I don't think they asked. I don't think anybody asked, which is probably fine. But no, everything went smoothly for the happy couple.
Well, good. So let's talk about this Badgers business a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not much of a college basketball fan, but I was like excited because I'm like, well, I can get into this. I can jump on I can root for these guys. I can root for these guys now. It matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
This matters. But and this is just like baseball too. So if you're a big basketball fan or a big baseball fan, the randomness of this game or both of them is just hell, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's just hell. Because, if Tanjay turns it on like 2 minutes earlier in the second quarter, right? The game ends differently.
Yep.
Right? It's just a matter of, on the ball, sometimes it ain't Greg Gard's fault, right? The balls were dropping in the early part of that game, and that happens all the time in basketball, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes they're dropping, sometimes they're not. So it's a brutal game to be a big fan of. I can see that.
Yeah, that's why I'm not letting the Badgers off the hook. They should have won that game, but I think college basketball fans or sports fans, we lose it a little bit when we discard 3 or 4 months of basketball to say, well, now the true test or now what really matters. It's like, okay, well, yeah, it's a big part of it, but you guys, this random tornado of a tournament can't be the judge, jury, and executioner for how we view a 5-month season of college basketball. It's too random. That's not fair.
It isn't. It isn't fair, but that's the way it goes. And I only had one other thing because I wanted to talk to you here, and I've been on vacation. You've been on vacation. The Green Bay Packers, they have to be very happy with their roster, don't they?
I think so.
Given what they've done in free agency.
Yeah, I mean, they added a nice corner. I mean, maybe we didn't get to talk about free agency before either one of us went on a trip. They added a nice corner to the mix. That'll help. They added a guard. That's not going to make them worse. I think they probably maintained. I don't think they got significantly better like maybe the Vikings did, but I think they maintained.
I'm very happy with what the Vikings did.
You should be.
They were just peeling off the cash. It was just fun coupons. They were just like, get some more, get some more, get some more. I was very excited about it. So
you should
anyway, you guys, you have a great day, Grant, and glad you're back. And just carry on.
You as well, Eric. Happy to be back. Bad news for those who enjoy the show and do not like it when I'm gone. I'll be leaving a week from Thursday again for another week. It's bad timing. Although I'm going to be gone. I was gone before everything climaxed in March Madness for the Badgers, and I would be leaving and coming back before the draft happens for the Packers. So the timing could be worse. But I'm going to be gone. This is the spring of Grant. And I know, Eric, you didn't bring it up. Very good last 2 weeks of Survivor. The first couple of weeks of the season were a little bit of I'm not going to say they were bad, but it always bums me out at the beginning when there's one tribe that can't get off the mat and they just can't win a challenge. They can't stave off elimination in tribal for a couple of weeks. So it's kind of a bummer. But the last 2 weeks, the tribals have been just elite. Great drama. Very, very, in the last week's episode specifically, some very, very high level gameplay, which we love. And Jeff Probst, Eric, much to your dismay, I think has done a pretty good job this season so far. So thank you for the call. 608-321-1670. Some texts coming in. I ask for these and then I neglect them. So that's on me. This one says, every March Madness champion since 1988 was a power conference with single-digit losses. 26 teams in the tournament this year that fit that criteria, including BYU and Wisconsin. None of Michigan or Purdue's opponents to get to the Sweet 16 met that criteria. Sucks Wisconsin lost, but BYU is a quality opponent. Oh, yeah. And again, I mentioned this back at the beginning of the show, so if you've joined since, I should probably reiterate. One of the frustrating things about Saturday, and I don't say this to let the Badgers off the hook, I just say it because it's fact. I watched basketball all day Saturday. None of those teams can play offense. Arkansas couldn't. St. John's couldn't. Michigan, I mean, that game was a free throw, clang fest. And then I turn on Wisconsin BYU. It's like, oh, so they get the Harlem Globetrotters. Like, we couldn't have got Texas A&M, who I'm told their strength, they make their bones on rebounding. Like, why couldn't Wisconsin have drawn the rebounding merchants? God, yeah, BYU's legit good. And they played better than they should have. They shot at a higher clip, especially from the free throw line. BYU is the 277th ranked free throw shooting team in Division I this year. They shot about 70% clip. They hit 15 of 16, including the center, who's a 40% shooter, who all of a sudden can hit free throws. So sick. So, like, not only was BYU, I think, the best quality opponent that I had seen of any team, around Wisconsin stature on Saturday, but they played better than they should have. And it was in Denver, which was much more of a road game for BYU than it was for UW-Madison. It's like, okay, sick. Paul and Menasha says, Badgers need to follow the scheduling example of MSU Duke, Kansas. They need to play more marquee games during the season to get used to and to get ready for the tournament. I mean, I don't know. Big Ten's got lots of good games. They played at Purdue. They played at the Breslin Center. They hosted Michigan. And they scheduled Arizona out of conference. Like, what do you want them to do? You know what I mean? Like, okay, they could draw maybe one more game. Paul, it's a fine point. I'm not telling you you're dumb. It's just not something that's front of mind for me. Dry Fly in Montana on the commentary about the Wisconsin national championship, the ladies winning the national championship in hockey yesterday. He says, Wisconsin is as much a hockey school as I am a creek chub. An exclamation point. I don't know. It's just something you say. Calm down, Dry Fly. Kristen Sparta, Wisconsin's been a hockey school for a long time. Both men and women have more championships than the other sports. No fact check, just guessing. Go see some high quality games, college or NHL. You'd be hooked. Yeah, I think there's a reason that I'm not into hockey. I think there's a couple reasons I'm not into hockey. The number one, biggest reason is we don't have a team here. I think a lot of my love for sports stems from my love in engaging in sports talk, right? I love being a fan of a team, but I think almost just as much, I like being able to turn on a sports talk radio show and engage with content based around my team and their games. Hockey talk doesn't exist in the Wisconsin sports talk sphere. I mean, you listen to a lot of shows, sports talk just doesn't exist in the Wisconsin sphere. That's a whole separate thing, but hockey, definitely not. So after the Four Nations face-off, right, like I'm listening to a show, I think I brought it up before, I like Felger and Maz. Felger was on with us at the Super Bowl. It's a show I like. They're talking Bruins, and they're talking about Binnington and all these players. Like, it's fun. It's this whole nother world, but it's just not a world that exists here in Wisconsin. And I do agree that going to games makes a big difference. Really, the only live hockey games I've ever taken in my life were my friends in high school, and they were a ball. I don't think they were any good. I can't remember. I'm not trying to throw them under the bus. I don't think they were any good. The games were fun. I don't think it's not like they were next level. I wasn't watching Jack Gorniak skate around. Let's just say that. Dave from Monona on Darnell says, Darnell, the chimp. If you can praise a manager or a coach, then you can blame him. That's fair. GWP Dad, I think you're missing the point, Grant. Greg puts that in there to provide some context on the season. You're talking about the expectations preseason.
We were highly doubted early. We weren't even supposed to be in this tournament. Supposed to be finishing 12th in the Big Ten, maybe. And this group just bought in.
Yeah, he put it in there to provide some context. It's just not context that I'm interested in. Luke on the dirt roads says, Grant, you could snort cocaine and ride a Harley out of an exploding helicopter, or you could watch overtime NCAA championship hockey. Both b-ball and, is it called hockey with a W? Is that what you're doing? Women's hockey had a who wants it moment when down only with seconds left. Johnson went with who wanted it. Guard did the same. Worked for Kirsten Sims, didn't work for John Tonje, though b-ball being in that position was certainly more of an indictment on them than the ladies needing last-second heroics to force OT. Yeah, that's fair. Let's take a 3-minute break. The phone lines are filling up. So if you want to grab a phone line, we can continue to have this discussion next. 608-321-1670.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
It's the Wisco Sports Show, Monday mailbag in about a half hour, so submit your questions, grantbills21@gmail.com. Reacting to the Badgers' loss on Saturday night, to recap everything that's been said, at least by me, I'm not going to try to recap every single call, but my big points, I'm trying to balance two things. I'm trying to balance my belief, my strong belief that March Madness is much more of a crapshoot than most media members would tell you. So many people are like, well, good season, but we'll see in March. Like, no, March is a part of it, but I don't think March should be the end-all, be-all when evaluating a season. So I believe that. But I also believe that Wisconsin should have won on Saturday. Like, they were better than that. This team was better than that. They had a superstar in John Tonje, and they were loaded to the gills with senior leadership and experience. That's a team that should make it out of the first weekend. So how do I balance those two things? It's kind of the battle that I'm fighting tonight and how I reflect on and how I talk about the 2024-2025 Badger seasons. Back to your call, 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
This would be Tim from Sparta.
Hey, Tim, what's going on?
Well, I never call on a Monday, but I just had to today because I don't know who in the heck these Badger fans are that are screaming for Guard's head. I don't know who you think that Wisconsin basketball is, because Bo Ryan had a run there of 3 or 4 years of really good teams in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly, Badger basketball is Kentucky or Duke or pick your basketball, Kansas. I'm sorry. That's just let's see, a clean word would be silliness.
I think it's insanity. This is the best Badgers team I think they've had since the Final Four. And yeah, they didn't make it out of the first weekend, and that sucks. And they deserve criticism for that. Greg Gard deserves criticism for that. But what do Badgers fans think this team is? You know what I mean? You said, well, they were really good for a couple of years. I'd contend that they're pretty good to really good most years. It just doesn't always result in a deep tournament run.
And the problem is that now is so different than back in Ryan's day. All he had to do was recruit a guy, and they were his forever, for as long as he wanted them. Whereas now, you got kids that are getting a full ride, and then they're going no matter where they go. And then on top of that, they make anywhere from an extra $20,000 to $500,000 or more, depending on how good they are. So how do you know what kind of a team you're going to have from year to year? You're basically starting over every single year with an unknown entity. And you're trying to make that work and become a great team. Now, you've seen coaches right and left leaving the field because they don't want to deal with it, because they can't. It's not in their mindset.
Some, not all, but some, yes. I think the ones who have left, I think it's been a little overblown. But some definitely have, yes.
But it's pick your sport.
Yeah.
This is a different day and age. I just laugh at these people who want to fire somebody that's proven that they can take a team, mold it into something valuable. And if you look at the game, yes, Wisconsin should have won. If Wisconsin shoots their normal percentage of free throws and BYU shoots their normal percentage of free throws, it's not close.
Yeah.
Wisconsin walks away with it.
Yeah.
But because of March Madness, and you never know what they missed. BYU missed what, one?
Yeah. And that's part of it. The Badgers, they had their own issues. And Tim, sorry, I got to run because we're loaded. The free throw shooting thing that's real. BYU wildly outperformed what you would expect them to do from the free throw line. Wisconsin made their mistakes too. So I'm not going to act like Wisconsin played perfect and they couldn't beat BYU because, the power of Joe Smith or, whatever Mormon thing. The transfer portal, it's just not heavy on my mind today, just because I don't really think it's going to matter that much for Wisconsin. They have a really nice core, and I could be wrong, but I think that Freitag, Blackwell, Winter, Janicki, Amos will be back. Okay, well, that's a core. This is why I think basketball, and it's a sport that I follow more closely. I follow college basketball or Badgers basketball more closely than I follow Badgers football, partially because of the time of year. The Badgers are on the same time as the Packers are. I don't need a 4-hour commitment on a Saturday when I already have a 3-hour commitment on Sunday. Whereas in the winter, it's especially for the show, I want games to talk about. And Badgers basketball moves the needle a little bit more than the Bucks do. And, the Bucks have ebbed and flowed in interest levels over the last couple of years, but you lose in the first round in back-to-back years. People are going to tune you out, but they're certainly not going to be as locked in. So there's plenty of reasons, structural, logistical, that I just care a little bit more about Badgers basketball at this moment in time. They're better, they're more competitive, but also I can get my arms around the thing. Badgers basketball can say, well, if let's say Cameron Hunter transfers. Okay. So Greg Gard goes out and gets another Cameron Hunter. You know what I mean? It's easier to bring in one or two guys around the edge and hope that they hit if you can continue to keep your core together. And I think Wisconsin's going to be able to keep this core together. So the transfer portal and everyone's saying, well, you don't know who any of these guys are. Maybe some other programs. Kansas's spending spree that didn't pan out is not my problem. That has nothing to do with us here in Badgerland. So I've chosen not to worry about it that much, even though I think it's a flawed system and at some point it'll need to be adjusted. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Is it Louie in Eau Claire?
Louie. What's going on, Louie?
Hey, Grant. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it was a really fun, kind of unexpectedly fun season. I didn't really know what to expect coming in. Then that Arizona game in early November, whoa, we just beat the number. I think they were top 10 for sure at that time.
That game was the balls. Oh, so good.
We kind of blew them out. I'm like, whoa, this is kind of a one-time deal. And props to Gard. He, after it looked pretty bleak, I thought, when Chucky and Storr left in the offseason, but he found the guys. He elevated or unlocked Tanji, elevated Blackwell and Winter and the crew. So I have no complaints. The people who are calling for Greg Gard are the fans, quote unquote fans, who really only watch in March and tourney time. They're not like you and I watching Wisconsin Northwestern on a Tuesday night.
That Carter Gilmore game was awesome, wasn't it? That's why like I'm hesitant to just dump on this team because they lost a heartbreaker to BYU when they gave us that awesome night in Minnesota when Jack Janicki had his moment, or Carter Gilmore against Northwestern. Like, I guess that college basketball for me, and maybe this is a me problem, maybe I'm picking and choosing. It's much more of an enjoy the ride sport than football, which has a much more truncated schedule. Baseball, I'm a little bit more likely to enjoy the ride. College basketball, I'm a little bit more likely to enjoy the ride. And I really enjoyed this year's ride, even though it ended shorter and sooner, certainly, than it should have.
But like you, I thought there was a little bit more meat on the bone. And as the season went on, my one complaint is that this team had some bad habits that were never really corrected. How many times did they foul a shooter on a 3-point shot?
Jump shooters, man. You're right. Yeah, that's not something that's come up, but that's something they did all year.
Like that sort of thing. Or they kind of struggle, like giving up like alley-oop dunks, like not being able to guard like the pick and rolls and that sort of thing.
That was real bad against BYU. The pick and rolls and the back cuts. And the whole game, they just never had an adjustment or anything to it.
And then just general decision making, like, Stephen Crowl at the end of the first half, with shooting, with time on the clock. None of those things in and of itself are that big of a deal. But when you're in a second round game against BYU, that's a 1.5 game, one of those decisions could literally cost you the game.
And it did.
We talk about the success that Bo Ryan had. Well, when they had their big comeback against Oregon in the Final Four year, but Ben Bruff's 3-point shot bangs off the rim, they probably lose that game. If the following year they're down by, I think, 7 or 8 to North Carolina, I think it was in the Sweet 16 round, Zach Showalter came up with a couple of big steals and layups. That's the margins in these games. So is it fair to judge a whole season based on it? No, but there are things that can be corrected that will give you a much better chance of winning these really tight games.
Well, and that's another question, Louis. That's a great call, and I want to get to one more call here before we take our break. But this is something that I wrote down in my notes. Let's just say a hypothetical, just for you to think about. I don't need an answer. Let's say BYU misses 3 free throws over the course of the game. So they shoot, where they go 15 to 16 or whatever they finished. So let's say they finish 12 of 16 and the Badgers win. Everything else remains the same in the game. The Badgers survive in advance. Does it really tell us anything different about the quality or the medal or the coaching caliber? Like, no. The result would be different. And by the way, if you ask a basketball coach that or you ask a football coach that, they'll tell you exactly you're barking up the right tree. Like the result always isn't indicative of, and that's why I love, harkening back or calling back to that Oregon game and the UNC game. And it looked like in 2014-15, they were poised to lose that UNC game until Shoei made a couple brilliant plays. You know what I mean? So like the result isn't always indicative of the exact game or the exact quality of the team. Again, I'm really, guys, I'm not trying to carry water for UW. That's not what I'm trying to do here. They deserve some heat, and Gard deserves some heat over Saturday night. But I just want to make sure we're applying heat appropriately, fairly, correctly. 608-321-1670. Last call before break. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Mike in Eau Claire.
Hey, what's going on, Mike? You're always no nonsense.
I know you say I'm a football guy, but I love all sports. I just have my seasons.
I don't doubt your ability to talk other sports. You just traditionally call during football season.
You're right. That's my main thing. Football is number one to me. But yeah, this is probably a take from 10 years ago, but it's become a Steph Curry league. All basketball, which is fine. But they just hit more shots. Like I watched the Michigan State game. I watched the Michigan game going into the tournament. And it's all about hit. They should have beat Michigan to win the Big Ten Conference Championship.
They should have beat Michigan both times. Yeah.
Yeah. They just, it's all about hitting shots. I'll use a big example as St. John's. They're playing 80s basketball. The Badgers are graduated beyond that, which I'm happy about. That's why I don't think people should fire Greg Gard or whatever wagon train that is.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's graduated this team beyond the Patinos and the Caliparis. That was two senior coaches that neither of those teams could shoot.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to hit. It's all about you got to hit shots and rebound nowadays. It's not down low, tough defense, elbowing guys in the jaw anymore. I'm a Jordan guy.
Yeah.
You know, I watched regular season games consistently in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, and now I basically just watch the NBA playoffs.
Yeah.
You know, and then same with college. I get into it. You know, after football, I get into it, but I know what it is. It's the Steph Curry. You got to shoot and you got to make it. And the Badgers didn't make enough shots.
So
both games.
So the 3-point thing, and Mike and O'Connor, that's a good call. I appreciate it. I just got to get to a break. The Badgers could have made some more 3-pointers for sure. They also could have made a lot less. They hit 12 of them. They hit the same amount that BYU did. They didn't have a bad shooting night. They just didn't have a crazy good one. I thought their bigger issue was missing free throws and missing at the rim and defense. And Greg Gard even said after the game, like, yeah, the offense wasn't the problem, even though we didn't get any scoring from our bench. Like, Max Klesmit had 12 points. When he hit those 4 threes, I could not remember. I know he hit a corner in the first half, but like, look, Max Klesmit hit 4 threes. They hit more threes than you would maybe think. Just quick recall of Saturday night. That wasn't really their issue. So I just think it's inaccurate. And I don't think it's fair to say, well, they didn't hit enough shots. I think they hit enough shots. I think their issue was situational, free throws, defense. I think that was their issues, I should say. Their couple of biggest issues. Shot making is down the line for me. They could have made more threes. They certainly could have made a lot less. They hit 12 of them. Let's take a break. We'll come back on the other side. I have a thought on the tournament big picture, and then our last segment will be the Monday mailbag. Grant Bills 21. Submit your questions.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show. A lot of good Badgers talk tonight. Good calls. Nice to be back and back in studio, able to take your calls. Thank you for bearing with me as I had to dip to Mexico, Cancun, last week for a wedding. The Monday mailbag coming up in about 10 minutes. A couple of big picture thoughts on college basketball before we take our final break, because we've been so Badger-centric. And look, I am not Isaac Trotter, yes, who joins us from time to time, who covers basketball on a more national big picture. He's watching all the teams, all the conferences. Like I am not Mark Titus. I'm not that guy. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know everything about every single team and that I'm the most equipped person to talk about. I'm not. But I think I could give some reasonable, rational thoughts on the tournament. I think that most people feel through the first 4 days, the first 2 rounds was kind of disappointing. So here's some audio. I cut this over the break. This is Stephen A. Smith on First Take this morning, talking about the lack of Cinderellas. We're just going to use this as a jumping off point for a point that I want to make.
Because college basketball, listen.
I think I cut it a little too early. Hold on. Let's try this again. Let's one more time.
If you in Durham, you're looking at Duke and North.
Time. This spot right here. Sorry about that. Editing on the fly.
If this continues,
here we go.
It will be the death of college basketball. Because college basketball, listen to what I'm saying, Coach. This has no effect on the allure of college basketball during the season. But March Madness, the madness of March.
Thank you for, by the way, thank you for reiterating that, Stephen.
But March Madness,
AKA,
the madness of March,
thank you,
owns sports for that 4 to 5 week period beginning somewhere in March through the early part of April. Owns sports. NFL season is done. The draft is approaching but hasn't arrived yet. The NBA playoffs are approaching but hasn't arrived yet. Baseball season is just getting underway. Other than opening day, you ain't really thinking about it.
Which is funny because baseball fans definitely are. We're thinking about it, but that's small potatoes. Keep moving.
March Madness, the NCAA tournament is where it's at. What I'm talking about when I allude to such a drastic, hyperbolic statement.
Okay, so let's pause there for a sec, because the second half of the comment is separate, and I want to address that. He's talking about the lack of upsets, the lack of Cinderellas, right? Kind of chalk. Something that really bothers me, and this is not unique to Stephen A. Smith. I just wanted to use this as a kind of a diving board to say a couple things that have been on my mind. It really drives me nuts when sports fans or sports talkers start talking about games like they should be tailor-made for our entertainment. You know what I mean? We see this a lot in college football with bowl games or the college football playoff. where it's like all these games have been blowouts. The committee, it's not the committee's job to create the most compelling television product. It's the committee's job to put in we do 8 teams now. How many teams do we even do? I don't really care that much. It's probably more than we need, but whatever. Let's 12. Is it a 12-team playoff now? I think it is. That's actually bad that I don't know, or at least I don't know off the top of my head. It's the committee's job to put in the 12 most deserving teams using the bullet points, using the criterion that they create. It's not their job to sit down and say, what's going to make the most compelling television? But sports fans, we've gotten a little spoiled. I think part of that is we have Netflix, not to sound like Cowherd, but we have Netflix and we have Apple TV and we have, we can scroll our phone if the TV isn't doing it. Like, we've gotten used to having so many options. Do we think, well, if this game isn't the greatest thing I've ever watched, then it's a disappointment and it's bad and someone needs to be held accountable, right? Look, I guess I'm sorry there weren't more upsets this weekend. If you love college basketball and high-level college basketball, then I actually think it's a good thing for the weeks to come because we'll have better games to watch. Early upsets lead to later mismatches, and that's true across sports. The NBA playoffs, March Madness, baseball, whatever. So if you're a fan of college basketball, well, there weren't a ton of buzzer beaters, and maybe it was a softer, sleepier first weekend of basketball. It's going to lead to some great matchups down the line. What it's bad for is talk shows, because we don't have a Florida Gulf Coast or a St. Peter. We don't have that story. We just have good college basketball teams. So the second half of this comment from Stephen A.
What I'm talking about when I allude to such a drastic, hyperbolic statement, albeit in some people's eyes, is I'm talking about the NCAA tournament. No matter what's going on during the college basketball season, if you're in Durham, you're looking at Duke in North Carolina, you're in Raleigh, you're looking at NC State, you're down and you're in the Pac-12, you're looking at Stanford, you're looking at UCLA, USC, people like that, not them anymore, not in that conference, but you hear what I'm saying. My point, Michigan and Ohio State, Big Ten, all of this other stuff. But the NCAA tournament is where it's at. And what is the appeal? What is the allure? Anybody has a chance because of Cinderella. That's what gravitates you. So when we have something, a system in place that says it's compromising that. If there was no NIL, if there was no trade portal, Shay, right? And
trade
you have
portal.
Zero, the mid-majors go 0-6 in the second round. Please, we ain't sweating that. But when you're able to point to rules that have been implemented that ultimately shows itself to have inflicted upon the game itself, that's dangerous.
Can we just,
because
the first thing about, can we just talk normally? Like, I like an intelligent talker with a good vocabulary. I just get lost and I don't even know what he was really talking about there, right? I think he's saying that the transfer portal and NIL and these things have ruined college basketball and taken away power from mid-majors because all these players just go to bigger schools for bigger paydays. Okay, I guess. I don't know. I would want to talk to a college basketball expert about that. I think the griping from shows like First Take and from talkers like Stephen A., and I didn't catch any of Cowherd's show today. I don't know what he said. But I think a lot of the griping about the first weekend of the NCAA tournament from big picture talkers is because, well, this is normally when we talk about St. Peter's or, George Mason, or that's what's supposed to fill this portion of the sport. That's what we're supposed to have this week. We're supposed to have the Sister Jean. We're supposed to, and we don't have it. So what do we talk about? Well, there are no Cinderellas. Let's just talk about that. And let's just take the NIL and transfer portal and use that, because those are just words we use to, blame our problems for. We use that. Like, I think that's what's happening this week. The first weekend of March Madness was fine, right? There weren't that many upsets. Okay, well, then we're going to be rewarded next weekend with better games between better teams and better players. Sure, it would have been fun to have an upset here and there. I also like watching the better teams. So I don't know. And mostly it just bothers me because I don't like when sports fans or sports talkers talk like we're supposed to have these matchups and games tailor-made as television products. It's sports. Sometimes one team is way better than the other, and it's reflected. Sometimes it works like that. Sometimes it doesn't, right? Oh, Wisconsin BYU was pretty entertaining, although it sucked to be on our side of it. I thought the Maryland game was pretty entertaining, right? There were entertaining games this weekend, but I think a lot of national sports talk shows this week are saying things like, well, the first round of the tournament sucked because, well, normally actually we'd be talking about the Cinderella, but there is no Cinderella. So what are we going to talk about? We can't just talk about the basketball because we're not equipped to do that. It's too nerdy. It's too, it's too segmented by region and by market. Let's take a break. 3 minutes. We'll come back. The Monday mailbag. We'll wrap up the Wisco Sports Show next. Submit your last minute questions. There's still time. GrantBills21@gmail.com.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Because the mail never stops.
Charles, we'll be writing to you. She's Got Mail. That's the name of the movie.
That's it, honey. There's never a let up. It's relentless. Every day it piles up more and more and more, and you gotta get it up. And the more you get out, the more it keeps coming in.
The Monday Mailbag. Appreciate all of your questions. GrantBills21@gmail.com. That's the email. That way they're all in the same spot. And it's a segment that I don't want a lot of, the texts and the tweets that come in. They're more throwaway. Think your question through, type it out, email it. I'm just going to ask you to jump through that hoop. This first email, J.A. Krebs, says, I think UW needs to choose football or basketball and give all their resources for nil. I think I would believe in Greg Gard a million times before I would Fick. More of a comment, really, but I appreciate your email. This is Clemhead Mike. Says, being at a romantic getaway wedding must have given you some ideas. Did you have the urge to propose to your lovely girlfriend? You're not getting any younger. LOL, Clemhead. Well, nobody technically is getting any younger. I don't know. Romantic wedding, yes. You don't propose at someone else's wedding. I don't think that's what you're asking. Let me tell you what, Clemhead, did I get any ideas? Yeah, I got the idea that I need to make more money because that wedding probably cost, I don't even know what X my net worth. I'm as bad at math as I am poor. So yeah, I got ideas, not necessarily proposing at someone else's wedding though. Mike, Coyote Mike, says you were in Cozumel last week. If not, skip to question 2. Okay, I was not at Cozumel. I was at like Riviera Maya or whatever. But at night, I think you could see the lights of Cozumel. No one else cared. I was at the wedding. There were two things that mattered to me on this trip that no one else cared about. Number one, when we were on a catamaran, there were flying fish everywhere. I thought it was sick. No one else cared. And then also, the wedding was on the beach. And then you'd look out over the water and you'd see this glow of lights across the way. And I'm like, is that Cozumel? What is that over there? Is that Cozumel? And everyone's like, who cares? I'm like, but I want to know. So I got out Google Maps and I believe it was Cozumel. It says, what was the best tequila you drank down in Mexico? Please do not say Cuervo Gold. Adios, muchacho. We were at an all-inclusive. I don't know what kind of tequila. We got tequila shots once or twice. I might have been the worst tequila I've ever. It was awful. Also, the lime does not help. It does not help. The lime does zero to help recover from the taste of tequila. I like tequila shots because if I'm taking a shot, I want my money's worth, and it gives me a jolt. It actually wakes me up. The lime does not help. You chase with pickle juice. That helps. That is delicious, and there's some nutritional value in there, I'm told. Don't look that up. It's just something I heard once upon a time, and I'm choosing to believe it. Eric says, if you wouldn't have become a sports radio producer, would you have still tried to find a way to work in sports in some capacity, or would you have taken a 180 and gone to something completely different? I don't know. It's never something I've really had to think about. I sucked at being a server in college. Got fired from that job. I don't know. This has been my job since I was like 19 or 20. So it's not something I had to think about. I don't know. I like playing music a lot. There's something that very much appeals to me about being some sort of struggling artist type. Just getting by and paying the bills, but also creating something meaningful. Not that this is meaning. What am I saying? Josh says, Survivor question. When the Green Tribe lost the first 3 challenges, I knew they were going to redraw for tribes to balance. As soon as that happens, I knew someone good or who's playing a solid game was going to get knocked off early based on the redraw. Of course, that happened, and someone went home that was in a great place, which was very funny. And I think could have won it all. I agree. Talk about Thomas. No spoilers. Sorry, it was last week. Catch up. What would be a better way to handle the situation of the one tribe struggling to win challenges? Think of something like the other 2 tribes voting one of their members to join the small tribe. Has to be a better way. Was just very frustrated that Thomas got sent home way too early. Josh from Downey. I don't have a way to balance, and I don't think they do either. Otherwise, they would have figured it out by now. I will say, I really like Thomas, but it was fun watching him go home because, was it Kyle and Camilla? They absolutely cooked. Those 3 guys thought they had all the power in the world. They weren't worried about anything. He had an extra vote sitting in his pocket, and all of a sudden, you're gone. Very entertaining and masterfully played by those 2. Played the cards the exact right way. Michael says, welcome back. What was your drink of choice and favorite meal on the trip? I'm guessing old fashions and traditional fish fry weren't on the menu. Yeah, and what a load of bull roar that is. Favorite drink I had, it was pretty straightforward because it's an all-inclusive. So you just get a beer or a margarita. I will say, margarita with tahini around the rim. I've never been a salt on the rim fan, mostly because it's just like eating salt. So maybe I'm drinking it wrong. I don't know. Same reason that I don't like limes and salt with tequila. Like, it's salt. Who eats salt? And who eats lime? It's like the worst citrus. I'd rather have a lemon. I'd rather have a grapefruit. So the best thing I had, probably a margarita with tahini around the rim. Excellent. That's more of a garnish comment than a drink comment, but that's my honest answer. Did I miss? I think I got all of them. I'm doing them out of order. Oh, this is a good one to end on. Tyler, I'm glad I saw this. Can you think of a worse way to lose your job like Dan Bernstein did from Chicago's 670 The Score, Tyler and Mass? Yeah, another dumb way was when they fired Dan McNeil a couple of years ago because he tweeted that Maria Taylor was dressed like the host at the AVNs. Both of those firings are dumb, but also stop fighting people on Twitter. Bernstein. What a turd. Although they don't have much left at 670 The Score. Who's left? Parkins just left too. Catch the podcast in a few minutes. I'll put it up after 6 o'clock. Thank you for listening. Talk to you tomorrow.